Good evening, darlings. Hello. Welcome in. It is delightful to see that you found your way back. Not that I didn't think you would. Of course you would. You're lovely, wonderful people. And so brave, too. So eager to avert disaster. Good evening, Kronos. Good evening, Nook Nook. Hello, Daywalker. Hello, Tiny. Hello, Shads. Hello. I believe you said your name was Rarity. Hello, Jordan. I think I know who you are as well, but I'm not going to out you just in case. Hello, Spider. Hello, Top Ace. Hello, Raquel. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that absolutely terribly, which I likely am. Hello, Rumble. Hello, Chuck. Hello, everyone. Well, now that you're all here, I have a very pressing question. I was rather hoping that you might help me out with it. My question is this. What time of day always feels slightly off, no matter what you're doing? What do you think? Hello, PJ. 6 a.m, Daywalker says. 6 a.m. That sounds to me like the time you're getting up for work. Sounds like, and you know what? If I had to get up for work at 6 a.m, it would always feel slightly off to me too. But then again, I have never been much of a morning person. Spider-Man, just morning. Jordan, when the blood moon rises. Oh yes. Yes, of course. Tiny, 3 a.m. Always something wonderfully weird and strange and a little spooky. We do love a good witching hour, don't we? Don't we? 3 a.m. to 6 a.m, says Kronos. You know what? I think I agree. Shads says early afternoon. That little transition from morning to noon is just odd. You know, it is odd, isn't it? And I feel like noon is such a strange time. Such a strange time. Because it really does seem to depend what you're doing that day. You know, sometimes morning feels decidedly over and you look at the clock and it's only 11. Sometimes it's 11:30. Sometimes it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon and it still feels like morning. So just that marker of noon never quite made sense to me. Odd. Chuck is definitely a night owl, I see. You say either before dawn or after dusk from Top Ace. All right, fair enough. 6 p.m. At the time the sun is dim enough to trick you into thinking it's night time when it isn't. Ah, yes, especially when it's those winter hours. Do you get winter, Emmy? Do they do this to you? Where I live, there's a particular time of year where you look outside and it's black as night out there. It's decidedly night time. There is no tinge to the horizon. There is no slight fading of light. No, it is straight up dark. It went from grey to midnight in the span of like 5 minutes. You might as well think it's a solar eclipse. And you look at the clock and you're like, oh, it must be super late. No, sir. It is 5 p.m. And this happens every year. Every year. And it's dreadful. It's terrible. Also, early morning in winter or late fall, when the fog coats the street just down the sidewalk. See, now I quite like that time. I love me a good early morning, late evening fog. I like to step outside and just look out into the world, covered in a faint blanket. What could be lurking beyond the fog? Who knows? But I would like to find out. But I suppose that's just me. Blackest night with no brightest day. It makes you think of the DC universe. Perhaps. Yeah, the earliest it starts getting dark this side of the world is 6 to 7 p.m, depending on the time of year. Yeah, it would be that way for us as well. But At some point, the government decided that daylight savings time was a wonderful thing that we should participate in. So suddenly it's just pitch black at 5 p.m. and screw your circadian rhythm. Because even though we've decided to just change the times of everything, we haven't also adjusted the times at which we are expected to, exist in the world. Your job keeps the same hours. Stores keep the same hours. Services keep the same hours. And yet, it's not the same hours. Everything has shifted. I don't know why we don't shift in comparison. For me, however, I think the time of day that always feels slightly off no matter what I'm doing is that singular hour just before dawn. It feels too late for any sort of proper ambition, but far too early for any kind of forgiveness. That's the time for me. Well, anyway, now that we've set that aside and I can categorise some things properly, it's time for knock or nope, where we decide if we're investigating or evacuating. I will set the stage, and then we'll see just how bold you're feeling. Are we ready? Remember, I want your first instinct only. You can elaborate afterwards, but just give me that initial knock or nope. Ready? Here we go. You hear your name clearly whispered behind you in the grocery store. There is no one there. Knock or nope? What do we think? What are you doing? Kronos immediately with the knock. Daywalker also with the knock. Chuck as well. Nook, my, we are bold, aren't we? And I'm seeing some nopes from our conservative people who have learned to have a healthy sense of paranoia and just nope the heck out of there. Tiny says, definitely a nope. I can come back for groceries. I can just leave. Absolutely. The groceries are still going to be in the store. There's other stores. You're not married to this store. You can just leave. Just drop the cart and go. No one to stop you. Jordan says, sadly, I would immediately turn around simply on habit. Ah, yes. How very human of you. Someone whispers your name, you're going to turn and look. But then are you going to turn back around to the way that you were initially facing? Not even habit, just pure muscle memory. That makes sense. Emma says, I used to work night shifts at a convenience store. If I heard screams while I was working with the closed door, I would have locked the heck in the fridges and hide. You know what? That is fair. Overnight workers, especially at convenience stores, bodegas and gas stations, that's a dangerous place to be. Such a terrible time. Not only because of the supernatural implications, but a lot of crime tends to happen late at night in such places. So I don't blame you at all. Locking yourself in the freezer sounds clever. Until you also consider that if you've locked yourself into the freezer, you've kind of gift wrapped yourself for whoever or whatever might wish to do you harm. Just something to think about. You'd lock yourself in a closet? We're talking about the grocery store. I haven't really seen many closets in a grocery store. All right. Let's get to our next scenario. Are we ready? You're scrolling through the gallery on your phone. An old photo updates to today's date. Knock or nope? Now, what do we think? How much do we trust technology? Are we knocking or are we noping? Kronos with the knock. Again, you are feeling daring, aren't you? BJ and Rumble, Spider-Man and Top Ace are all knocking. Chuck with the nope. Tiny and Shad's also with the knock. Wow. Wow, most of you are knocking. Alright. Alright, Tiny says knock. Could have been an accidental pick or something interesting is happening. That is fair. That is fair. So what does knocking look like? What does knocking look like in this situation? Does it involve trying to find some kind of update log to see if perhaps we accidentally edited an old photo and so it saved a new copy with today's date? Is that what we're doing? We're going to start poking around in the digital wonderland? Because that's never gone wrong. For anyone. We certainly don't have several stories on the channel, particularly about people digging around in technology in places they don't necessarily belong. Scroll to when the photo was taken and see how many times have changed. So we're definitely knocking hard then, Spider. We're not just checking out this one photo, we're looking to see if there's more. You do like trouble, don't you? If that Christopher Nolan movie taught me anything, that might be my dad from the present or future trying to communicate. Yes. Yes, you're quite right. And hello, Striker. Good to see you. Alright. So pretty clearly across the board, we want to knock on this one. We're curious. That phrase about curiosity killing cats? Never heard it. Never heard of it. What are you talking about? No. Alright, so before we get to our next scenario, a quick housekeeping note, you guys. Quick housekeeping note. If you are watching this on YouTube, thank you, I love you, you delightful little darlings. Do me a favour. Make sure that you are subscribed, first and foremost, because if you're not, well, I might have to come after you. But more importantly than that, go ahead and hit that thumbs up like button on the stream. It actually does really help a whole lot. So if you could just take a moment to do that, I would really, really appreciate it. Already are been subscribed for IDK how long? You know, you never know. You honestly never know. I was actually watching a YouTube channel yesterday, and I have been watching this channel for years. I've been watching this channel for years. I come back week after week. I think I have seen every video that they have ever done. And it did not occur to me that I wasn't actually subscribed. Because I naturally have notifications turned off for everything across the board. I don't even really get notifications on my phone. So I hate them. They drive me nuts. And yeah, I didn't realise. I could have sworn that I was subscribed like 5 years ago. It turns out that I wasn't. So I sheepishly hit the subscribe button, grateful that no one knew of my shame. Until this moment where I've decided to declare it to the entire internet. I'm clever. Hello, Melody. Hello. Alright. Are we ready for our next scenario? Are we ready? Are we ready? Here we go. Your dog is growling at a blank wall, slowly backing up. Knock or nope? Which are you doing? First reaction, gut instinct. Knock or nope? Chuck right away, knocking. Chuck the Emperor is bold. BJ Rocker is gonna nope right the heck out of there. Kronos, nope, we trust the animal instinct. Doesn't matter if I can't see anything, that dog clearly knows what's up. Spider says knock because his dog barks at reflections. Can confirm. The prince does, in fact, bark at anything. Shads, you're going to knock. Dogs can have their moments sometimes. I suppose so. I suppose so. I've been hearing my dogs barking at the door at nothing, so you're going to knock. Nope, had a dog IRL do this to a chair. Nope, nope. Was it a rocking chair? Was it a rocking chair? I have not had any experiences like this with either literature or lore, but once upon a time, there was definitely a dog that went absolutely mental at something no one else could see. I have to tell you that story sometimes. Perhaps we'll take a visit to the courtyard. Not tonight, of course, but at a future time. If you're interested, I might be convinced to tell the tale. It was a rocking chair, like a 70s fabric style rocking chair. Oh no. No, I would nope right the heck out of there. Myself, I know. Alright, what do we think? Perhaps one more? I think we can do one more. Our final entry for tonight. Your smart TV turns on. The input, HDMI 4. You don't own anything plugged in to HDMI 4. Knock or nope? Kronos with the knock. All right. Shad's a definite nope for you. Okay. Okay. Popeyes. Nope. Switch it back right now. Oh, gosh. Tiny knocking. Tech can be weird sometimes. Smart TVs and streaming and Chromecasting can be weird. Yeah, of course. It's just the technology. Be like that sometimes. It's definitely not a cope or a rationalisation that's gotten anyone killed before. A rumble, you'd probably knock. Ah, yes. Daywalker, nope, I've seen The Ring. I ain't getting killed by no goth preteen girl. Ah, yes. Yes, now that one. That's quite nice. I like that. Nope reminds you of the classic movie Poltergeist. You know what? That's fair. That's absolutely fair. Oh boy. Well, well. We do, of course, have a lovely story tonight, and that means if we're going to get to it, you know what comes next. We have to set the stage. The candle call does await. But before we do that, I am going to step away for just a quick moment. But I think I have a lovely little ad to play for you in the meantime. So hang tight, stick around, don't go anywhere. Be back in just a moment.
Are you tired of the mundane, the ordinary, the monotony of your everyday mortality? Well, dear listener, allow us to step past the sensible and into the surreal with spectral elixirs. A sparkling splash of spine-tingling style. Imagine, if you will, the clock taps 12, the moonlight paints the pavement. What better hour to wet your whistle with the otherworldly? Spectral elixirs, the potion of choice for patrons of the peculiar, brewed from the very breath of haunted realms, with a finish that lingers long after the lights go out. Act fast! Every purchase nets a members-only card to the Mansion of Shadows. Mirrors that murmur, banisters that brood, and the past is on a first-name basis. Spectral elixirs, because ordinary spirits won't satisfy extraordinary nights. Pour a glass and let the goosebumps do the talking.
Ah, well, thank you. Ah, I did warn you that from time to time, those advertisements, they really do be insistent, don't they? Don't they? So who voiced that? That was voiced by the lovely, the wonderful, the radio broadcast VTuber of legend, Rogan Breaker. Rogan Breaker recorded that almost a year ago, and it's finally getting its time to shine. Quite the products, eh? Yes, yes indeed. Thought so it sounded familiar. If you like advertisements just like those, a few other lovely friends have helped me out with them. You can see them on this YouTube channel. Go check the shorts. Shads did a few. Kiro did a few. There's lots of new products to uncover. Well then, of course, that means it is time for our candle call. Solid advertisement, where do I buy? I suppose I could probably give you a link if you'd really like one. Here you go. We'll put it in the chat for you. There's a link to Relica Bay. Alright. We've been doing these candles for a while now. And you know how this goes. Observer, participant, witness. And I've watched you. You've stood where you were told. You've held the room. You've followed the thread without tugging it loose. It was very disciplined of you. I appreciate that. But did you think that this was just ambience? Oh, darlings. The candles were never just decorative. You've been standing in the threshold this entire time, but tonight you take a step inside. Because you've learned so quickly. I wouldn't have brought you this far otherwise. So you'll notice, as we advance, that things are getting a little more in depth. Are you ready? Let's begin. The first candle is for the observers, those who watch, those who listen, those who remain. Tonight, if you answer this call, you are to track recurring detail. When something appears again throughout the story, mark it in the chat. So then, observers, this candle is for you. The second candle is for the participants, those who step forward, those who engage, and those who act. Tonight, you will track repeated action. When a choice or a behaviour happens again, mark it in the chat. So, participants, this candle is for you. And the third candle is for the witnesses, those who remember, those who carry what happens here with them. Tonight, you will track warning signs. When a detail hits you as potentially important, mark it in the chat. So witnesses, this candle is for you. And the final candle, I light myself, for those who would be here, if they still could be. Excellent. The space is set. Let's move on. Now, tonight's little spectacle isn't about a ghost. It isn't about something pale in a hallway or a porcelain-faced child humming in the corner of your peripheral vision. No. Tonight, we are attending something far more wholesome. A street fair. Live music, food trucks, children with glow sticks, generators humming like obedient little mechanical bees. Temporary cables taped down with municipal optimism. Isn't that sweet? Nothing says community quite like folding tables and sanctioned electricity. I do love watching that part. You won't be hunting a creature. You'll be dancing on a line. So do make sure you choose carefully, because the ground is listening. Some disasters are sudden. Some are spectacular. Some are written off as unforeseeable. This is not one of those stories. Nothing supernatural is involved. No curse, no villain. And before we begin, you must decide how you want to stand inside of it. Would you like to stand as an observer, noticing patterns, distances, movements? Would you like to stand as a participant, feeling proximity, pressure, and consequence? Or would you like to stand as a witness, interpreting, rationalizing, assigning meaning? Go ahead. Choose your role. I'll give you a moment to decide amongst yourselves. Now remember, regardless of which role you choose to experience the story in, you all have your tasks. You know what you're looking for. This selection might help you in your task, or it might not. Each role focuses our attention just a little bit differently. Observers tend to focus on limited internality and focus only on those things which can be actively observed. The participant role, well, that focuses on bodily feelings and physical sensations. And the witness role. Witnesses focus on internal thoughts, rationalizations, and articulated feelings. So how would you like to experience this story? What do you think? We'll go ahead and put the poll up now for you to have a chance to vote. I'll give it just another moment. Interesting. Interesting. It looks like Observe is in the lead again. Didn't we observe it last time? What's good in noticing patterns when you could feel them instead? Ah, yes, that is true. That is true. You could feel them. You could understand them. Or you might just see them. Alright, let's close that poll. The choice is in, and it looks like you have chosen to observe. Well then, an interesting choice. I wonder if it'll make a difference. Here we go. The annual downtown street fair occupies 6 full blocks. Vendor tents line both sides of the road in alternating colours. Striped canvas, branded pop-ups, hand-painted banners tied to lampposts with zip ties. The street itself is closed to traffic. Barricades mark the perimeter on either end. Orange plastic interlocked with reflective tape. Chalk arrows point towards restrooms, first aid, live music. A stage has been erected at the far intersection. Steel truss, black curtain backdrop. 2 vertical speaker stacks angled towards the centre of the street. A local band is midway through a cover song. The bass line travels through pavement in low vibration. Cymbals clash in afternoon sun. Children move in loose clusters between booths. Some carry glow sticks, though daylight has not yet faded. Neon bracelets knock lightly against plastic cups. A child in light-up sneakers runs past a folding table stacked with handmade candles. A balloon animal bobs above the crowd, tethered to a small wrist. Food trucks idle along the side street, feeding into the main block. Fryers hiss. Shaved ice machine grinds steadily. A kettle corn drum rotates, metallic and rhythmic. Steam lifts in white ribbons from the barbecue smoker. Someone flips burgers with a metal spatula. Someone shakes powdered sugar over funnel cakes. A line forms at a lemonade stand. Along the vendor rows, generators hum. They sit behind booths, behind tables, red and yellow casings, vents vibrating faintly. Extension cords snake outward from them, black, orange, neon green, running along the pavement and disappearing under tables. In several places, temporary electrical cables are taped down with wide strips of grey duct tape crossing the asphalt in flat bands. The tape edges lift slightly where shoes have scuffed them. The air holds layers of scent. Fried oil, sugar, charcoal smoke, sunscreen and warm asphalt. A breeze shifts direction. It carries something sharper, not strong, faint, sulphuric. It arrives in a thin wave, then dissipates. The smell lingers for 2 or 3 seconds before dissolving into kettle corn and diesel exhaust. The band transitions into the chorus. Applause follows, scattered and warm. A volunteer in a bright yellow vest adjusts a folding sign that reads, "Raffle tickets, $5. The breeze shifts again. The sulphur scent returns. It is still faint. It threads between other smells rather than replacing them. It drifts low, close to ground level, then seems to lift. Two teenagers pause mid-step. One wrinkles his nose. They continue walking. Near the centre of the block, a vendor leans over a stainless steel cart. The small blue pilot flame beneath a warming tray has gone out. Crouches. Produces a lighter. Shields it with his palm. Click. Click. A bright flare. The flame catches, small and steady. He adjusts a knob and stands. The generator beside his booth vibrates slightly harder when he toggles a switch. Its tone rises half a note before settling back to its previous hum. Across the pavement, a strip of duct tape holding down a thick cable has peeled back on one corner. A stroller wheels over it. The tape lifts and slaps lightly against the asphalt before settling again. A city utility truck is parked 2 blocks away on the cross street. White body, municipal seal on the door, amber light bar on top, not activated. Rear compartment doors closed. No cones placed around it. No personnel visible nearby. The truck's presence is unobstructed but peripheral, partially masked by a cotton candy stand. The wind shifts once more. The sulphur scent returns. Longer this time. A woman standing near a jewellery box pauses mid-sentence. She lifts her head slightly and inhales through her nose. She glances towards the food trucks. Her friend shrugs. Conversation resumes. The band announces a 5-minute break. Music cuts. The sudden absence of amplified sound reveals a different layer of noise. Generators in staggered rhythm. Fryers bubbling. The grind of ice. The low murmur of several hundred voices overlapping. Without the music, the air feels quieter. The smell is more noticeable. Still not strong. Still intermittent. A child holding a sparkler package tugs at an adult's sleeve. The package remains unopened. The adult shakes her head and points towards a sign that reads, "Fireworks after dark." A volunteer walks by, carrying a stack of bottled water. The volunteer's radio crackles briefly with static, then clears. Another breeze. The sulphur scent threads through again. It does not arrive evenly. It seems to gather in pockets. One section of the block catches it more clearly than another. Several people turn their heads in near synchrony, scanning for its source. A man near the kettle corn drum lifts his head to check the batch. Steam escapes in a white cloud. The sweet smell intensifies, temporarily masking everything else. When the steam thins, the sharper odour remains underneath. A stroller pauses near one of the taped cables. The parent adjusts a bag hanging from the handle. The stroller's front wheels rest directly over a seam in the asphalt where the street surface has been patched recently. The seam is a darker shade of black than the surrounding pavement, a rectangular outline approximately 6 feet long. The breeze slackens. The smell fades. The generator behind the shave ice truck sputters briefly, then stabilizes. Its hum returns to a steady rhythm. At the edge of the block, near the cross street where the utility truck is parked, a storm drain sits flush to the curb. Its metal grate is rusted at the edges. A faint sound, almost imperceivable, rises from it when the surrounding noise dips. A soft, irregular hiss. The sound disappears beneath the restart of stage microphones. The band returns. Guitar feedback squeals for a half second before the volume is corrected. Applause follows. The sulphur scent rolls through once more. This time, someone speaks clearly enough to be heard over the music. Do you smell that? The question does not carry panic. It carries curiosity, mild confusion. 3 nearby heads turn towards the speaker. One person laughs lightly and gestures towards the food trucks. Another waves a hand in front of their face as if brushing the air aside. The vendor who relit the pilot flame wipes his hands on a towel and serves a customer. The flame beneath his tray burns blue and steady. The temporary electrical cables remain taped to the pavement. Shoes pass over them in constant traffic. The edges lift and press down again with each step. The city utility truck remains parked 2 blocks away. Its windows reflect sunlight. Its doors remain closed. The wind shifts again. The sulphur scent drifts through again. Faint, intermittent, carried by the wind, strangely. The band grows louder. Children move closer to the stage. The generators continue humming along the vendor row. What do you choose to do? You can assume it's food or sewer gas. You can quietly alert a fender or a volunteer. Or you can call emergency services immediately. I'll give you a moment to argue amongst yourselves while you're doing that. In the meantime, let's look at some of your call-outs, shall we? Oh my. Our participant is making call-outs. Cables on the floor of a crowded event feels like a really bad idea. Indeed. Indeed. Tiny, mentioning the smell of food trucks multiple times. Excellent. Excellent, yes. Yes, that is something we might be paying attention to. Whenever something repeats more than once, it's usually a good idea to make note of it. Well, all right then. I think you've had a moment to argue amongst yourselves, to give your reasoning. Let's go ahead and give you a poll. What do you choose to do? All right. Looks like you made your choice pretty quickly. And it appears that you have chosen... interesting. To quietly alert a vendor or a volunteer. After all, the last thing we'd want to do is cause a scene. We do want to be reasonable, don't we? The sulphur scent drifts through again. Still faint, still intermittent. Carried strangely along the centre of the block. A volunteer in a bright yellow vest stands near a folding table stacked with bottled water and raffle tickets. A handheld radio is clipped to their shoulder. A lanyard badge hangs at their chest. They're scanning the crowd without urgency, You step towards them. As you approach, the breeze shifts again. The sharper scent threads briefly between the smaller smells of fried dough and charcoal smoke. The volunteer turns slightly as you reach conversational distance. You gesture towards the air and speak quietly. The volunteer tilts their head and inhales through their nose. They pause for a moment. Their brow tightens slightly. They inhale again. The smell is present, still faint. The volunteer nods once. They lift their radio from their shoulder and press the side button. The radio crackles. Can we get a quick check on food vendors along the main block? Possible odor concern, they say. Their tone is measured, not urgent. The radio replies with static and a brief acknowledgement. The volunteer lowers the radio and looks down the vendor row. A vendor near the centre of the block is adjusting the small blue pilot flame beneath a stainless steel cart. The flame burns steady. He reaches beneath the cart and tightens the knob. He wipes his hand on a towel and resumes serving customers. The breeze shifts again. The sulphur scent drifts low along the pavement and lifts near the centre of the block. A second volunteer, farther down the row, pauses mid-step. They raise a hand slightly and inhale. They walk towards the shaved ice truck. Behind the booths, generators continue humming in staggered rhythm. Their tones overlap, but remain steady. Temporary electrical cables remain taped flat across the asphalt. A stroller wheel rolls over one strip of tape, lifting the edge slightly before it presses back down. The city utility truck remains parked 2 blocks away. No lights are active, no doors open. The volunteer beside you steps closer to the nearest food truck. They lean slightly towards a propane tank mounted at the rear. The tank valve is visible. The vendor bends and twists the valve gently clockwise. They shake their head once and gestures outward with an open palm, indicating no issue. The radio crackles again.
Nothing obvious on the tracks,
the voice reports.
All connections tight.
The volunteer nods once and lowers the radio. The band restarts another song. Amplified music fills the block again, compressing smaller sounds beneath it. The sulphur scent fades briefly beneath the heavier odours of cooking oil and smoke. A man near the curb lights a cigarette. The flame flares briefly at the tip before shrinking to a steady ember. No immediate change follows. The volunteer scans the crowd once more. They lift the radio again. Facilities, can you confirm if there's any scheduled work or maintenance affecting this block? They ask. Static.
Negative.
The reply comes.
No active work.
The breeze shifts. The sulphur scent returns. Stronger than before, but for a few seconds. 2 nearby people wrinkle their noses. One points towards a storm drain at the curb. The volunteer steps towards the drain and crouches lightly. They pause and listen. Between drum beats from the stage, a faint, irregular hiss can be heard. It is brief and difficult to isolate under the music. The volunteer stands again. They speak to the radio once more. Can we get utilities to look at a possible odor near the center block? Non-urgent, they say. The response is slower this time.
Utilities are staged nearby. We'll advise.
The volunteer lowers the radio. The fair continues. Children move towards the stage. Glow sticks knock together in bright arcs. The generators continue humming behind vendor rows. The pilot flame beneath the stainless steel cart remains steady and blue. The taped cables remain flat against the pavement. The city utility truck remains parked 2 blocks away. The sulphur scent drifts through again. Faint, intermittent, carried strangely by the wind. The street fair continues. The sulphur scent returns, stronger than before. It arrives in a thicker wave, moving down the centre of the block before dissipating unevenly into the crowd. It does not settle uniformly. It gathers in pockets near the middle of the street, then thins towards the barricaded edges. Several heads turn at once. 2 vendors standing across from each other pause mid-transaction. One lifts his chin slightly and inhales. The other steps out from behind her table and looks down at the row of booths. The band continues playing for several seconds longer. Then a generator behind the shave ice truck coughs. The sound is abrupt. A sputter that interrupts the steady hum. The tongue dips sharply. For half a second, the stage speakers emit a low crackle. The music falters. The guitar note cuts off mid-measure. The block drops into a sudden pocket of near silence. In that absent, the sulphur scent becomes more noticeable. Without the amplified sound, smaller noises ride. The grind of ice, soft hiss near the curb, the low murmur of conversation. Then the generator catches again. The hum returns. Music resumes. Slightly offbeat before the drummer recovers tempo. Applause rises reflexively from the crowd as if the interruption were part of the performance. Along one section of booths, approximately halfway down the main block, a string of decorative lights flickers. Once. Twice. The bulbs dim noticeably and then brighten again. The flicker travels down the line of tents for several yards before stabilising. The taped electrical cables lying across the pavement remain in place. The edges of the grey strips lift lightly as feet cross over them, and then settle flat again. The sulphur scent rolls through once more. Stronger now. Still inconsistent. A vendor near the centre of the block laughs lightly and waves a hand in front of his face. "Probably a sewer," he says to a customer. He shrugs and resumes scooping food into a paper tray. Across from him, another vendor does not laugh. She steps out from behind her table and scans the length of the block. Her eyes move towards the storm drain near the curb. She folds her arms briefly, then lowers them and glances towards the utility truck 2 blocks away. The white truck remains parked. No lights flash, no doors open. The music continues at full volume. A man standing near the jewellery booth flicks a lighter. The flame flares bright orange. He draws in and the tip of a cigarette glows slightly. Smoke rises and dissipates over the crowd. No one nearby reacts to the lighter. The sulphur scent pulses again. It lingers longer this time. A child near the centre of the block fumbles with a thin metal sparkler still inside its plastic packaging. The packaging tears. The sparkler slips from small fingers and falls to the pavement near the darker seam of patched asphalt. It lands without igniting. An adult bends and retrieves it. The sparkler remains unlit. The generator behind the shaved ice truck coughs again. The lights along the same section of booths flicker once more, dimming briefly, then returning to full brightness. Two nearby vendors exchange a look. The one who laughed continues serving customers. The other steps slightly farther into the street and inhales again. Her posture stiffens. She gestures towards the ground near the centre of the block as if indicating the smell's origin. The sulphur scent gathers more densely near that area for several seconds before dispersing outward. Children move closer to the stage. Glow sticks arc in green and blue streaks through the air. The music carries on. The storm drain near the curb emits a faint, irregular hiss when the song transitions between verses. The sound is brief and partially masked by the restart of amplified instruments. The generators continue humming along the vendor rows, though one tone wavers slightly before levelling out. The sulphur scent drifts through again. Stronger, still uneven. Several people wrinkle their noses. Some glance around. Most resume conversation. No announcements are made from the stage. No sirens are visible. The music swells into another chorus. The sulphur scent pulses once more, heavier near the middle of the block, before thinning towards the edges. The lights along the same section flicker again. Short, uneven, dimming. Then return to steady glow. The crowd remains in place. The fair continues. What do you do? Do you begin telling people to move away from this section? Do you search for the source itself? Or do you trust that if it were serious, authorities would already act? I'll give you a moment to argue amongst yourselves, pick the best choice, sway your peers. In the meantime, I'm going to take a look at some of your call-outs. Alright, let's see. I see lots of speculating about the utility truck. Lots of you, well done. Well done, calling out that utility truck. We have seen it multiple times. Good job. Chronos. Excellent. Repeat of lighter, the cigarette, the flame flares. Yes, excellent call out. Well done. Perfect. Perfect. Something wrong with that generator. But those typically aren't natural gas powered. This is true. Tiny, the sewer is suspicious and the generator is getting a little sus. You are correct. You are correct. Well then, I think you've had time to convince your fellow denizens. Let's go ahead and start that poll for you. What do you choose to do? All right. I think you've had long enough. Let's see what you chose. And it looks like you have chosen... interesting choice. Begin telling people to move away from this section. Well, it's not a terrible choice if you think about it. You're not trying to cause a panic, just being cautious. Let's see how that goes for you, shall we? The sulphur scent rolls through again. Stronger. It gathers near the centre of the block, where the lights flickered moments earlier. You step towards the densest part of the crowd. The music continues at full volume. The bass vibrates through the pavement. Conversations overlap in layered noise. You raise your voice. Your mouth forms short, direct phrases. You gesture with one arm towards the outer edge of the block, away from the centre. A few nearby people turn toward you. One couple pauses mid-step. The woman wrinkles her nose and nods again. They begin edging sideways towards the curb. A man holding a paper tray of food shakes his head lightly and remains where he is. You repeat yourself, louder this time. You point towards the darker seam in the asphalt near the centre of the block, toward the storm drain, toward the section where the decorative lights flickered. The sulphur scent pulses again. A small cluster of people closest to you begins shifting outward. Their movement is gradual. No one runs. They step aside in measured increments, creating a narrow gap in the density of the crowd. A vendor who looks concerned earlier steps farther out from behind her table. She raises one hand and echoes your gesture, waving customers back from the front of her booth. Across from her, a vendor who laughs continues serving food for several seconds before glancing up and noticing the movement. He sets down a utensil and steps slightly backwards from the front edge of his table. The band continues playing. No announcement is made from the stage. A volunteer in a bright vest approaches, weaving through the shifting bodies. The volunteer raises a hand and speaks to several people near the centre of the block. The radio at their shoulder crackles briefly. The generator behind the saved ice truck coughs yet again. The music falters for half a second, then resumes. The lights along the same section of booths flicker once more. Dim, brighten, steady. The sulphur scent lingers longer this time. A man near the curb flicks a lighter to relight his cigarette. The flame flares and then steadies. Smoke rises. The volunteer gestures more firmly now, using both hands to direct people away from the centre of the block. The movement remains controlled. Individuals step sideways towards the barricades. A small pocket of open space begins forming around the darker seam in the pavement. Children are pulled gently by the wrists towards the edges. A stroller is turned around and pushed back towards the sidewalk. The pilot flame beneath the stainless steel cart remains blue and steady. The city utility truck remains parked 2 blocks away. No lights activate. The sulphur scent rolls through again, heavier. The open space in the middle of the block widens by several feet. The band continues playing, though several audience members near the front glance backwards towards the shifting crowd behind them. The faint hiss near the storm drain can be heard briefly between drum beats. The volunteer lifts their radio and speaks into it again. Static replies. The volunteer nods once. No sirens are visible on either end of the barricaded street. The generators continue humming along vendor rows, though one tone wavers slightly before stabilising. The lights remain on. The crowd has thinned slightly near the centre of the block. The fair continues. The sulphur scent drifts through again. Stronger, but still inconsistent. The asphalt changes colour and texture where the seam was cut into the road and then resealed. That patch of road is darker, smoother, and slightly uneven along its edges. In several places, the sealant has pulled back from the older pavement, leaving hairline gaps. A small metal plate sits embedded a few feet from the storm drain. Faded orange spray paint marks across the street, partially obstructed by scuff marks and shoe prints. Utility markings, numbers and arrows remain visible beneath dust and tape residue. A temporary cold patch has been applied near the centre of the block. The material is slightly raised compared to the surrounding surface. One corner has begun to crumble under repeated foot traffic. The breeze shifts. The sulphur scent thickens near ground level. You pause near the storm drain. The metal grate is flush with the curb. Debris has collected along its edges. Paper scraps, a plastic straw wrapper, leaves. Between drum beats from the stage, a faint, irregular hiss can be heard. It's not loud. It stops and starts. The decorative lights above flicker once more. Brief, dimming, and then steady. Behind the vendor tables, generators continue humming. One tone wavers and stabilizes. You look down the length of the block. A white city truck still remains parked 2 blocks away. No hazard lights flash. No personnel are visibly approaching. You continue walking along the patched seam. Near the centre of the block, the asphalt is slightly softer underfoot. The seam widens near a rectangular cut in the pavement. The edges are not fully flush. The sulphur scent gathers there more heavily before dispersing outward. The music continues. A man near the curb flicks a lighter again. The small flame flares and steadies into a cigarette ember. Nothing immediately follows. The temporary electrical cables run along the pavement, secured by grey duct tape. The tape edges lift and press down with each passing footstep. You step back towards the centre of the block and look down at the seam again. The cold patch material shows signs of recent work. Fresh tar lines, uneven compression, scattered gravel. The sulphur scent lingers low along the line before lifting into the air. The generators continue humming. The lights remain on. The crowd remains mostly in place. Beneath the pavement, unseen, the line runs through the block. The atmosphere is still. The air feels heavy near the ground before thinning with the breeze. What do you do? Do you choose to pull someone physically away from the area? Do you attempt to cut off a generator? Or do you step back and create some distance for yourself? Choose wisely. As always, we'll give you some time to argue amongst yourselves. Come up with the best possible action. What can you do? And in the meantime, I'm going to catch up with the chat. See some of these call-outs that you've made. Dark seam on the asphalt, called out again. Yes, well done, Tiny. Excellent observation. Excellent. Top Ace, remember where there's smoke, they pinch back. That utility truck, yes. Yes. Spider burn. Storm drain hiss. Ah, yes. It has happened a couple of times, hasn't it? Repeat of the seam in the pavement. Yes, Kronos. It's happened a few times, isn't it? Hasn't it? Mm-hmm. Well done. Bro is a chain smoker. That's what, 6 cigarettes? Hey, sometimes being in crowded public spaces is, anxiety inducing. Well, alright. I think I've given you a chance to sway your fellow chatmates. It's time to vote. Give you a moment to get your votes in. Alright. I think that's more than enough time to get your votes in. Here we go. Let's see what you have chosen. And you have pretty unanimously chosen to step back and create some distance for yourselves. My. I find it quite interesting that you were so willing to help others before. You chose to warn people away from the area. And now, all of a sudden, it's every man for himself. Interesting. Well, let's see how that works out for you, shall we? The sulphur scent gathers low along the darker seam in the pavement. You step backwards. One step, then another. You move towards the outer edge of the block, closer to the barricades and the sidewalk. The crowd thickens slightly towards the edge. You move against that flow, slipping between shoulders and folding chairs. The music continues at full volume. The bass vibrates through the pavement in steady pulses. The generator behind the shave ice truck hums unevenly. You increase the pace between yourself and the seam by several feet. The sulphur scent remains noticeable, but weaker at the edge of the block. The generator coughs. The music cuts mid-note. For half a second, the block falls into near silence. In that silence, a faint, irregular hiss from the storm drain becomes audible. Then the generator catches again. The hum returns. The band continues playing. Decorative lights along one stretch of booths flicker. Dim, brighten, steady. You take another step back, reaching the sidewalk. A small group of people stand near the barricade facing the stage. Their posture remains relaxed. A man near the curb flicks a lighter. The flame flares briefly and then steadies into a cigarette ember. No immediate reaction follows. The pilot flame beneath the stainless steel cart remains steady and blue. Temporary electrical cables lie taped to the pavement. The edges lift and settle as feet pass over them. The sulphur scent drifts through again. A child drops a sparkler near the darker seam. An adult bends and retrieves it. The white city utility truck remains parked 2 blocks away. No hazard lights active. No personnel approach. The generator hum continues. though one tone wavers briefly before stabilising. You remain near the edge of the block, and the fair continues. A man near the curb lifts a lighter. A generator sputters and catches again. A temporary cable shifts against tape and snaps lightly against the pavement. A child bends over a sparkler. One motion completes. There is no visible distinction between ignition and the 100 other moments occurring in the same second. The street erupts. The darker seam of the asphalt splits first. The patchwork line lifts violently upwards as if pushed from below. Pavement fractures along the recent cut. A rectangular cold patch bursts apart. Sound compresses into force. The blast expands upward from beneath the street surface. The storm drain cover launches into the air and lands yards away. Asphalt folds and peels back along the utility markings sprayed earlier in the week. Glass erupts outward from vendor cases and nearby storefront windows in a single outward boom. Shards arc into the air and scatter across the block. Booths lift. Metal frames twist. Fabric canopies snap and collapse. Folding tables overturn. Food trays scatter. Decorative lights explode mid-string, bulbs bursting into fragments. The stage speakers rupture in a burst of static and debris. Bodies are flown. Some are lifted and carried backwards by force. Others drop immediately to the pavement. Several disappear into the widening rupture where asphalt has separated along the trench line. Smoke and dust surge upward from the broken seam. The pilot flame beneath a food cart vanishes. The generators go silent. The music does not resume. Where the darker patch had been, the street is split open. Asphalt lies buckled and displaced. Beneath it, exposed earth and fractured pipe are visible through smoke and debris. People lie across the pavement at varying distances from the epicenter. Some move. Some do not. Cries rise after the ringing silence that followed. A glow stick rolls through dust. A cigarette lies extinguished on broken asphalt. A sparkler rests bent near the edge of the rupture. Phones lie scattered. One screen flashes repeatedly with an unanswered call before going dark. Sirens begin in the distance. Emergency vehicles approach from both ends of the barricaded block. Hazard lights strobe against suspended dust. Fire crews and medics move through debris, stepping over collapsed frames and broken windows. Stretchers are carried in. Individuals are lifted, stabilized, carried out. Others remain covered where they fell. The street remains open along the line of recent utility work. The rupture traces the same path as the earlier excavation. The temporary patchwork has been forced upward and outward, exposing the trench beneath. Officials gather near the edge of the blast radius. Radios crackle. Notes are taken. Photographs document the lifted asphalt, the fractured seam, the display strain cover. Statements are recorded. Reports reference underground utility work conducted earlier in the week. The asphalt had been cut, a line accessed, and the surface temporarily restored. Later findings note that a rupture had occurred approximately 3 hours before the street fair began. Gas had pooled beneath the street surface. Gas had filled drainage cavities and voids beneath the patched seam. The concentration had reached explosive levels before the first song had ever played. The ignition source is listed as undetermined. Possible sources include an open flame, mechanical restart, electrical discharge or handheld spark. The street remains split open. Booths lie scattered where they fell. Windows remain shattered. Lives are counted. Injuries are tallied. Property damage is documented. Smoke continues to rise from the exposed trench. The fair does not resume. The street detonated along the line that had already failed. The rupture had occurred hours before. The gas had already accumulated. The ignition completed what had been building unseen beneath the pavement. The narrative ends when the street opened. Oof. Well, that escalated, didn't it? Not because of a demon or a curse or because someone read Latin out loud with too much confidence. No, because of a line, a trench, a patch. A repair completed earlier this week with the quiet reassurance of temporary will hold. You smelled it. That's the part that lingers, isn't it? You smelt it. You traced the seam. You heard the hiss. You watched the lights flicker. You saw the generator cough like an old man pretending he's fine. And you acted. Or you warned, or you shut something down, or you stepped back, or you trusted the people with badges and radios. But still, the street lifted. You may carry guilt. You may carry anger at the city, at the contractor, at the permit, at the timing. You may replay the moment you chose A, or B, or C. You may imagine that one more warning, one more tug, one more shut-off switch would have rewritten physics. Maybe you could have saved someone. Maybe you couldn't. Maybe you couldn't have. Maybe you could have. Maybe it was impossible the whole time, or just maybe, next time, you'll do better. Well, that is going to be it for us tonight, my darlings. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you had a wonderful time. We, of course, will be doing this again, same bat time, same bat channel, right here next Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Right here, mark your calendars. We shall be here. If you've not done so already, do make sure that you've subscribed, you've hit that like button. It really does help. And after the stream ends, if you wanted to pop back by and leave a cheeky little comment in the comment section of the video, well, that'd be lovely. Date is wrong? Yes, you are correct. It is wrong. It should be March 5th. It should, in fact, be March 5th. Good catch. I see someone's observational skills have really been put to the test tonight. Well done. Thank you. So yes, March 5th. Tiny shall have words with the butler. Yes, Mr. Ashburn does get up to some mischief, doesn't he? Well, until next time, darlings, may harmony find you, and nothing else.